Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the ObaNutrition channel. I hope you had a lovely, enjoyable, more fun 2023. And in the year 2024, you are more focused, you are more purposed, you are more resolute on having your resolutions and your plans accomplished. So, today in this episode, I'll be sharing with every one of you the biggest cause of obesity. I understand that majority of you might be wanting to lose the weight, but they don't understand why in their weight loss journey it has always been inconsistent, sometimes gaining, sometimes losing, and yet they are very active. So the biggest culprit when it comes to gaining weight is usually a high intake of simple carbohydrates. So we have two types of carbohydrates. We have the complex carbohydrates and we have the simple carbohydrates. The complex carbohydrates are the starches, the cellulose, and the glycogen, while the simple carbohydrates are mostly the monosaccharides and the disaccharides. Among the monosaccharides, you have glucose, you have fructose, and you have galactose. So glucose is the normal one we take whenever you are going for a run. Sometimes some people will take that glucose. Fructose is the type of sugar that you find in fruit. Galactose is the type of sugar that is found in dairy products. And then you have the disaccharides. So among the disaccharides, you have um, maltose, which is a combination of two glucose molecules. I understand that this might be so scientific to some of you. We also have, but just try to follow up with me. We also have sucrose, which is a combination of glucose and fructose. So where you find that, where you have now the normal fruit sugar being sucrose, or like let me say sugar itself, the table sugar that we use. It's a combination of one glucose molecule with fructose to form sucrose. And then we have another type of the saccharide which we call lactose, which is now found in the dairy products. You have all heard of lactose free milk and lactose free yogurt and what have you. So lactose is now a combination of glucose and the galactose. With that said, if your diet is much more rich in the simple carbohydrates, which is now the monosaccharides and the disaccharides, just try to follow up with me with this is too scientific for you. If your diet is so much rich in that, it means that much of your food that you'll be consuming, it will be easily digested, and once it's easily digested, it is stored up for energy because you're consuming high portions of them, and yet they're not being expended as much as the way you are consuming. So there's this relationship between what you consume and how it is now processed in the body, especially for the carbohydrates. So for example, if you take glucose right now, there's a hormone which is called insulin. So insulin is a fat storage hormone. If I was to inject you with insulin, you would become fat actually, because it's a fat storage hormone. So if you consume maybe glucose, the next immediate thing that will happen is that the body will produce insulin. So the work of insulin will be to convert that glucose to a form of energy. That's maybe if you are running, and then it works for you. But if you're not doing any form of activity, probably you're seated down, you're sleeping. For example, those who consume late night meals. So you consume a meal right now, 1 hour you're into bed. So insulin will be produced during that time you're in bed. And because there's no activity you're doing at that moment in time, the next step that insulin does is actually convert all that sugar to fats so that we don't have elevated blood sugar levels. So insulin is coming to protect you from becoming diabetic. So it's actually doing God's work. But the problem comes in by you causing it to be produced every now and then. So with consuming simple carbohydrates, you will be causing its production every now and then. Because with simple carbohydrates, one, they are easily digested and very easily absorbed. So when insulin comes in, it will sweep away all that sugar, and after 2 hours, you will feel hungry again because all the sugar you had consumed, it had been swept away from your blood, and now you're feeling the hunger signal coming back again because now the body is feeling empty to some extent, which is it's a mental signal actually. And I can give you an example. For example, if you are to consume a banana, a ripe banana, which is a type of sugar which we call fructose, the fruit sugar. So you consume a ripe banana right now. So you'll consume one banana and you tell yourself, maybe I'm feeling okay. And then maybe after another 1 hour, you go for another banana. After another 30 minutes, another banana. At the end of the day, you can find you have consumed about 20 bananas. You are not intended to consume the 20 bananas, but what is happening? Insulin is being produced, removing all that sugar, and then you feel hungry again, and you repeat that cycle and that cycle every now and then. So if this cycle is constantly repeated, as I've told you, insulin is a fat storage hormone, is that you'll be storing fats every now and then. And that's why a high consumption of simple carbohydrates will make you more fatter and fatter. For example, let me give you an example of a person's diet. In the morning, you consume maybe at 7 a.m., you consume your tea that is laden with sugar. So once you have consumed this tea laden with sugar, remember the sugar will cause production of insulin. Then you can remember the milk found in that tea. There's milk sugar. The milk sugar will also cause production of insulin. Then you consume your milk tea alongside bread. So the bread itself, remember bread now it's now a type of maltose. Maltose is the disaccharide, a simple type of sugar. So you consume the bread and then it causes also production of insulin. Now, all these three kinds of foods, there's the sugar itself that you are putting in your tea, there's the milk sugar, and there's the bread sugar, which is now maltose. They have all caused production of this hormone. Once this hormone comes into play, you store some fats at that particular point in time. After 2 hours, you took your tea at 7 a.m., 7 to 8 a.m. At 10 a.m., you're feeling hungry. And you're like, I took some 5 slices of bread. What is it called? What is now happening? It's because all that sugar has been swept away from your bloodstream by insulin, which is actually doing God's work and convert them to fats. Then at 10 a.m., insulin has done its job, so it's resting. At 10 a.m., you go and take maybe there's tea in your office with mandazi. So you take the milk tea, which is also has sugar, with mandazi. The same process is repeated again. Once it's repeated again, is that you store more fats. You store the fats for 10 a.m. Let's imagine that between you going to your workplace, you actually never did any form of walking. You actually took either a motorbike, a taxi, or you took a matatu. So it means that all the energy that was stored by insulin in the morning, you have also not used it up. You get into the office, you have taken your 10 o'clock tea. In the office, you are probably seated down. You're not moving up and about, maybe like as a teacher, or let's say like someone who is doing some juakali business. You're probably in an office and seated down. Then at 1 p.m., as I've told you, it will take just about 2 hours for insulin to do God's work. At 1 p.m., you feel hungry again. This time, because now you're having now a situation in which you're trying to recover the sugars you have lost. And not that you lost the sugars, it's because they're just been stored up. So you're trying to also, you say, I'm feeling hypoglycemic, or I'm feeling I have low blood sugar levels. So at 1 p.m., you go for another snack. You maybe take some chips. So chips also is a form of simple carbohydrate. After you take those chips, you also feel hungry again. After another 2 hours, maybe you took the chips with soda and you stop the fats for 1 p.m. Then at 4 p.m., you're like, I need to reboost my sugars so that I can get energy to go home. So at 4 p.m., you probably decide to take some biscuits on your way alongside as you walk to home. Maybe this is the time you say, I'll walk home. So you take some biscuits. As you're taking these biscuits, remember they're also type of a simple carbohydrate. And then you store the fats for 4 p.m. And then at night, you probably say, nikikula mapema. Or if let me say in English, if I eat early, I will feel hungry at night. Let me eat late in the night. So you have your supper at around 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. within those times. So you also store some energy at that time. Maybe you have had a large size ugali. You have also had some, okay, let's say it's a normal meal, ugali with some fish and some veggies. You have had that. And then 1 hour later, you're in bed. So all that ugali is also now stored up again as energy. That means you have stored up energy almost 5 times in a day, which has not been entirely used up. So let's say you repeat this same process for about 5 years. Definitely you end up with a bigger body size. Now that's the first mechanism by which a high intake of simple carbohydrates will cause you to become more obese, because it's always causing production of insulin, the fat storage hormone.